Hello and welcome to the new year. So let's get things started here. So last time we were working on save game stuff, and we were getting close there, but we have to change gears. It seems that we were looking at things for the 3.8.5 release. We noticed that the song system isn't working, specifically for playing media player songs. And that needs to be addressed in the native platform before we can really release that as a release that in preview or as an official 3.8.5 release. We're going to make sure that works. So I was going to spend these next 2 hours seeing if I can make that work. So let's start with fixing my captions here. All right. So in MonoGame, there's two different systems here. There's the sound effect stuff and there's song. Song is specialized. It was written around the old school APIs of like on Xbox and on other consoles. You used to be able to, I think you might still be able to, I don't know if anybody does. You used to be able to play your own custom music while you're playing games and stuff. And that was all based around a media player that was part of the operating system. So XNA was written around the same concept that there's a media player that's in the operating system that can play different song files for you. It also does video, but in this case, we're talking about specifically music. And in what differentiates it here with music is that usually the music is streamed. It's not all loaded into memory at once like sound effect is. So the idea is to have a streaming implementation that can stream a little bit of music at a time. And we don't want to depend on platform-specific features for that because in our experience in the past, that makes it very spotty to make it work across different platforms. So it's easier for us to have one implementation that works everywhere. So that's what we're trying to do here. So let's get started here. I'm going to share my screen. Let's go. All right, let's share screen. All right, so screen is shared. Let's size this sucker up, make it easier for people to read. So, well, first thing I noticed is like usually whenever we're working on this stuff, we need a way to test it. And what I found immediately was, surprisingly, there's no unit tests in our unit test framework in MonoGame for the song system. I'm not sure exactly why. Hello, Quirky, I think. What time is it? So, question about shader models. Let's put that up for a second. We can talk about that for a second. 3.8.5 or later version to higher shader models than 3.0 for vertex and pixel shaders in Linux. Okay, so in Linux in particular, yes, I believe once we move, there's two things happening. Like one, the new Vulkan backend that'll be in 3.8.5, you should be able to use that, and that uses a shader model higher than 3. I believe it requires 5 or 6, I think. So that'll unlock a lot there. And potentially, we're working on an OpenGL backend, in the native side that is targeting specifically so that we can do some web stuff, a web backend for this. And if we do that, then potentially there's a higher shader model there that we can attack. There's also Dom has a PR up about removing the moving the OpenGL implementation that we have now, the C# OpenGL implementation that's in the desktop GL implementation, to support higher shader, or to support a higher version of OpenGL, which should unlock higher shader models. But I can't guarantee that that's when that's going to happen or how long it's going to take and what difficulties we might run into there. So yeah, so there's some pushes for that. But yes, in the near future, you're going to be able to do higher shader models than 3x on Linux. Just don't know exactly when. All right, so I copied over the sound effect test. Over to here as a starting point. Just to have something that is a starting point for us here. I don't need all this stuff. This is all sound implementations. I want to see the playback though. This is testing some stuff. Because, it is a little hard to test sounds. The only thing you can really test is, does it actually load? Does it, when I call play, does it play? Does it return a status that it's playing? And then when I stop, does it stop and return a status to stop? You know, that's the thing that is difficult to figure out. Let's see. Simon says, Tom beat me to it, become the first MG streamer for 2026. Yes, I did. I just felt like there's stuff that we have to do. So, I think this one, yeah, all these tests are pretty much just testing. Can I open this? We had one that does a playback, and I don't know where that test went. It's probably in the sound effect instance test, actually. So let's get rid of this. We don't need that. Let's close that. I don't think we need to test this. Let's go back to the sound effects instance test. So I'm going to get a pause, stop, play. Okay. Right, so something like that is probably what we need, I think. And we'll just have to modify it as we go here. I don't know what that other test was doing, but that's what we're going to actually test. And I was going to see, I haven't used the media stuff in a while, so I wanted to see how that actually works. So that's all good. That's kind of generic. It'd be probably good to have this in a shared place for our test purposes, but for now it's fine. So what I did was, here's a way that you can test this stuff a lot of times. I'm going to go to monogame.net. Like, I was trying to remember, how do I play songs? So I want my test to come in and fail first, and then we can figure out about fixing it. So you just go to, learn, and I went to Documentation Hub, and I know that in the, let me zoom this in a little bit. So I know that in the documentation, there's a getting started, or actually getting the MonoGame how-to. I go to how-to, there's an audio section, and then playing a song. So that's what we want to see. So a good unit test here that kind of points us in the right direction of how to do it. So you have to content load a song first, then use media player to play it. Makes sense? So we basically want to do bar song, media content. Let's see if there is a, what's the right way to get a content test here? Let's see. Let's look for content load in our existing examples, or an existing unit test that will tell me how to approach that. There it is. So it just gets the game services container, graphics device proxy. Does that mean it has to have a tear down? And let's see what that means. I think this has a, maybe not. I'll just trust this code. It says that that works. Sure. Actually, that's interesting. I wonder what all this is about. Let's move this. I'm going to copy this code to the other side here and use this, but I think I might want to maybe unify some of this at some time so that we can share this across tests. Is kind of weird. Okay, I'll trust that. I think it just needs, what does it? Okay, interesting. I'm surprised it's having to generate so much dummy stuff to do this. very odd. And I don't know if this will actually work. I kind of am tempted to fire up the old XNA tests. Music is a bit loud. Let's see. Let's adjust that real quick. Depending on you guys telling me when that stuff is off. That's a little lower. Hopefully that's better. All right, so yeah, I feel suspect about this. I do have the XNA stuff installed. I have to enable it. I have a special batch that'll turn it on for a project. Let's write some code first, then we'll go from there. Okay, so this works. That's in place. So this should work. Then content will load a song. I'll have to, I don't know if I actually have a song in the assets. I might have one already set up in here somewhere. Technically it can be anything, or any sound effect could be a song potentially, but I'm surprised I don't load anything else. Let's see what's in here. That might be acceptable. It's fine. That would work. It's really for a sound effect, not really a song, but you know, we could use that. There's a WMA version of it. So we want to do that probably, but we also have to have a song XNB. You know, it's not going to work because there's not an XNB for it. I have to actually make it build a song XNB, I think. But how do I normally do that? It's been a while since I messed with this and tried to get it to do actual content. I think there's an MGCB file in here that it uses to build some content, or is the content pre-built? I always forget. There's no XNBs in here, so it's definitely not pre-built there. It's probably pushed that. Well, let's just get it into the asset build. This is always what the difficult part of this is, getting it set up to build the right thing. See, there's an MGCB specifically for music or for effects. What? The template specified. Who knows what the heck Windows is doing there? Just open it in Edit Plus. Yeah, so that's just for that. Okay, there is a project for that. I assume that that's just that one thing. Yep, and that's not what we want either. See, I think these are all pre-built specifically for this. I might just have to do that potentially. I mean, in theory, I could use the other, you know, hey, Dom. We could potentially use the new pipeline to set this up, but that seems more of a pain to do that. Or it's easier, but it potentially could have just show issues in the new pipeline, which isn't totally done yet. So it's probably not worth doing that. It's probably going to be more worth just doing this. I'm going to do this, copy this guy here. I'm going to leave that alone for right now. I'm going to do song importer. And that should be all I need to have it build that. I need to see if I'm assuming that most likely whoever built this built it separately. Let's see if I can get it to build this with this right pipeline here. The importer was wrong. Oh, that's right. You have to import it with just do wave importer, song processor, quality best. Save that guy. I'm just gonna have it build it. So it built it. This is built for Windows. It's building as a WMA. Sure. Okay, did the right thing there. See, but you know, building it as a WMA is not ideal for my purposes. What's the right way to do this? But it saw it was like, oh, you're building for Windows, so build it as a WMA. Let me build it for desktop GL. Well, yeah, because that's going to build it for something that's cross-platform. Let's build that. So it builds it in OGG, which is good for my testing purposes. Because that I can definitely get an implementation in place to stream the OGG. Yeah, I'm not working on storage container today, Dom. Unfortunately, I need to deal with this emergency of getting Song working here. So we'll do it as OGG because that's not a bad implementation. I've used a couple of different OGG kind of singular, like simple libraries for streaming OGG or processing OGG data. So this is not a bad path to take. All right, so with this in place, I have the data I need. So I need to tell it, I need to see how that does it for the shaders, because that's where that's going to help me. Let's find where it does this one. If I find files, bevels, should find where it actually uses it in a test, shader test, test case bevels. As a test utility. Okay. That's how it does it. I see what it's doing. And this seems over-engineered to me. It's a lot of like, we don't want to type this word again. So let's combine paths here. I guess some of it's so that you don't have to deal with slashes or something, but no, this seems all crazy over-engineered stuff to me. It's possible I wrote it, you know. I know I've looked at this code before, but it looks fairly over-engineered for what the purposes are. Seems like I don't have to go that crazy here. All I have to do is make the correct path, which in this case, the path is going to be assets audio, and then song, which should be fine for our purposes. I'm just going to do is forward slashes because that will always work on all platforms. Oh, I lost the name of my thing. Nope, don't need a double. That should actually load. I'm going to disable this for right now. I just want to test that this thing actually loads this thing. Or at least tries to load it. Let's see what happens if we do this. Oh, I went full screen. Can't see things. All right. Oh, I need to test. There we go. Let's debug that test. Interesting. Sound effect. That's interesting. I wonder how it got. I wonder how this didn't execute. Because it failed in here. Maybe it failed for something else. Let's try it again. Fail. Let's get my Test Explorer. That might be easier. All right. That's what it didn't like. Interesting. Oh, I see. This is a cascade of problems here. It called sound system get max instances, and that failed, most likely. Probably because this was not called yet. Because the sound system isn't initialized yet, which is why. Seems like it should have done that lazily here. Let's go to my native code here. Not in there, not in there, in here. Oh, I don't have this set to, so it couldn't get to there. That's kind of weird, huh? Let's see. I think first I have to fix this thing to debug native code as well as the other. Where is it? So I have to go back here, and it's how do you do that on the test? I guess it's here. Yeah, I need to come in here, set this up in the debugger to, oh, it is enabled. Might be because that is a set of startup project, maybe. I don't know. We're about to find out again. Debug. Can't load the runtime or when it's dependencies. Sound effect. Interesting. I'm not sure. Let's see. Crumpet, hello. Snapbite, hello. Montfissa Ramen CO2. Hey, old man, what are you building? I'm working on MonoGame. That's a C# open source library that's used for building games on PCs and mobile and console. It's free to use by everybody. We're kind of adding in we're adding in a implementation of playing about music / songs, you know, in our new native backend. That's what we're doing. Yeah, it could be. Is that something that just recently happened that we renamed that? It's possible that that's what the deal is here. Let's see if it actually can. I think when the tests, it runs them out of the assets folder or the artifacts folder for the tests. It'll be in there. And is it in here? I do not see it in here. So it's just not there at all. That was changed to that, right? Yep. Yep, that's the case. Then it's probably missing for that reason. I don't see it at all, though. I'm surprised it's not copied over there. Man, I really hate that freaking thing. Whenever I see this, it's like, ugh, garbage. This is all trash. Worst implementation. Let me put a million little folders in the root. Dumb. All right, so need to fix that. I can fix that in a crappy way, I guess, or I could try to fix it the right way. Do I not have something here for this? Yeah, I have a content include. If your runtime configure exists, artifacts, so it should have copied this. I wonder why not. Let's see. Artifacts native MG runtime desktop windows. No, it's not there. That's first problem. That's not bugging. Back to here. Build that guy. Keep saying it's built. I'm going to force it to rebuild. Project only. Build only. .bk. Could be that's failing to build, and that's part of the problem, maybe. Is it building somewhere else? Hansp32, hello. Why isn't it there? Okay, it's probably in here. Yep, it's in here. So that's where it is, but this is old. No, that's today. That is today. Why is it named something different in here? That is interesting. So it's looking. Hey, sir, what's the best way to contact you? I have chat regarding my AI bot. Yeah, I don't think I can help you with that. Or you have to give me more information. But let's see. Why is this wrong? I mean, this has been this way for a while. The path in the test is late is correct. Okay. You know what? I might need to rebuild that project maybe. That's probably what's going on here. It was probably changed in here. So if I rerun pre-make, it probably will update the projects. And when it updates the projects, it'll build it in the right place probably. That's probably my problem there. Let's see. There it goes. Your runtime, desktop DK, Windows, debug. There it is. All right. Much better. Yeah, the pre-make stuff. Yeah, that was the issue. So now if I build this, it should be in, well, I should see it in my, let's get rid of this since this is old stuff. You can see some of the Xbox stuff in there. PS5 stuff. Let's just delete this folder since it looks like that's not used anymore. weird. I'm not sure why that's happening. Okay. Somebody's got something locked in here. Really? It's funny, like I can't delete the folder, but I can delete the files. I can delete everything but that folder. Now I can delete that folder. Fucking Windows. Windows. Make song mid-native monogame. I don't know what the make song mid-native monogame means. This is some newfangled way you kids are talking nowadays. All right, so that's there. Let's go find our tests. Desktop.vk, debug. We should have MG runtime now. Yay, finally back to where we need to be. All right, debug. Okay, that should work this time. Hey, look at that, got there. Okay. So question is, will this load a song? Looks like it did. So it loaded a song, it found the asset, it has a name. It looks like it called the interop code for this, but it can't really do anything with it. So let's stop it now. I mean, the code for actually running it is media player play song. And does that return back anything? I don't think it returns back anything. I think you can do pause. Stop. So basically we want to do a test, something like that. Anyhow, that API is very similar. Play, let it sleep for a second. Pause and then let it sleep for a second. And then stop and let it sleep for a second. Let's give this system enough time to clean up there. And then I should probably use, forget, that doesn't have to be disposed, I don't think. So this is going to fail, but why not run it? Okay, it succeeded because, well, actually, I wonder why that succeeded. Oh, I know why, because the high-level state, I think, is updated. Yeah, I think I know why that succeeded. Like this, come on, there we go. When I pause, the state is updating, but it's not the, it's just the state that gets set when you initially set this. It's not the real-time state of the thing playing. It's not actually playing. I'll show you the native implementation that's in there now. At the moment, it goes through this common code here. That one. So what we did is we wrote an API that kind of does the decoding of audio. It doesn't do the playback. All it does is the decoding. The playback occurs at the higher level, at the C# level. And it uses the existing APIs for streaming audio. Specifically, it uses the existing APIs for dynamic sound effect to do all the streaming, which we're going to have trouble with that as well. Sleep while dispensed in milliseconds also. It is interesting. Oh, it is interesting. I wonder why it was set to 10. That seems like such a tight balance there. Let's go for half a second. Just give it enough time to see. For playback, I'd like to hear a second of audio at least to verify I can hear it. I used to have the unit test box that we used to run back in the day for MonoGame was in my office, And I know whenever unit tests were running, because I could hear, because Windows was dumb, you had to have speakers plugged in for the Windows sound system to work. If not, the unit test would fail. So what I would have speakers hooked up to it to a low volume, but I could still hear it. So every once in a while, I could hear the unit test going off because I could hear the pattern of sound effects. You know, it's funny, I can even repeat the sound effects like what they sounded like at the time, because it was just a couple test sound effects, so I could hear the pattern until it was running. It's funny that, you know, stuff that's left in your head from doing this stuff. All right, so how the new system works is it has this helper here for creating an audio decoder, and that's what's being called here. So if I go back to my unit test and run it or debug it, it's getting into this audio decoder create. So it gets here and says, here's the song. Let's read the signature. This is going to fail because it can't. Actually, no, it doesn't even fail. Oh, actually, it's not going to fail because it does read the signature, because this code does work. It reads basically the first 16 bytes of the file and says, okay, well, that should be enough to detect what kind of song file this is. And then it passes the signature into these two helper functions to see if it can create a decoder for it. And both of them basically do nothing. They say, hey, there's nothing. I'm not going to create anything. The whole idea is that it creates a decoder system and then returns the decoder object back, you know, to the C# code. Then if it has a decoder, then it says, okay, you know, create a voice for it. You know, it's going to create basically a voice specifically for streaming. And then in here, you'll see that it does all the regular stuff. It sets volumes. It's gets the position, pause, resume. Where's our play here? This is the thread that actually does decoding. So it creates a thread and says, hey, go decode the stream. And it basically it checks to see if the voice needs more, if the voice is out of buffers, because it just passes little chunks of buffers at a time. If it runs out of buffers, it says, okay, decode another buffer out of the system, and then append the buffer into the system. You know, and, you know, if it isn't playing, start playing it. If it is playing, keep going. It keeps doing this, basically updating the state of things until it's done. It says done playing and sends an event whenever it's like it detects that it can no longer decode stuff. So it's basically just saying, decode a little bit of data, append the buffer into the system, and it just keeps doing that until it runs out of data. So that's how the system generally works. And the implementation I did for this, I tested on, I can't really show it to you, but I did the initial implementation of this API for Switch, so that MonoGame on Switch had a sound API. That's the first implementation that used this. And let me go take a look at it real quick here in private, because I can't show you, unfortunately. I mean, you would think that it's not that big a deal, but we don't want to upset our console overlords by showing you something that you shouldn't see. So the implementation there, I'm reaching over to see my other screen here. So yeah, I had an implementation of a decoder specifically for the basically it was specifically an implementation for the a format that's specific to Nintendo Switch. And that's how I initially wrote this, was against that. And because that worked, then it gave us a solution that would work across. I knew that I had an API that functions, at least the high-level API, and this functioned correctly. I could test it and see that audio was playing and everything's good. It wasn't unit tested, it was tested just to make sure that it ran. So that does work. So it doesn't. I also had a video decoder that did the same, that is designed the same way, but I don't think I implemented the video decoder on this one. So yeah, so the next step here is I really do need to start making it work. So because OGG is the first one, that's where I need to make this function. So let's start with, I did have an OGG player for something. Let me see. I was using an OGG player in another project. It was actually kind of a nice. It was kind of a nice player, I think. When I was working with, it was like a singular header. It was very straightforward to use. I want to see which one it is, and then use the same one in this case. So I'm looking that up over here. Another thing I can't show you because it's part of another project and it's private and can't show any of this. But I just wanted to identify what the library was I was using in there and see if it makes sense for this project. It might. Wrong place. There we go. Sorry, getting there. I found it. It was called minivorbis.h. And I found it really good because all it does is the decoding part, which is all that we really need. This is it here. So this is the one that I used, and I found it pretty helpful. It's one of these singular header implementations, which I found really nice to use. Super simple. It does exactly what we need, decode OGG. So yeah, BS3 class 3, I think that should be completely compatible with what we're doing, so I don't think that's a problem. So yeah, let's go with this because I liked it. I like that implementation. How did I have some code for implementing it here? Looks like we just used the singular minivorbis header here. I don't know what that is versus the other. What is that? Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about. Pretty sure this is the header I used last time. The only thing that's tricky about headers like this is that if we want to share this code across platforms, we have to make sure that these things are defined right for other platforms. That might be something we have to deal with later. Because I do want to make things like OGG, in Wave work on, or in MP3 work perfectly across other platforms as well. So yeah, I think that's what we use. Let's see. Yeah, so I should be able to do this. And then I should be able to grab our minivorbis header here. I think it's just this one. Any audio vorbis, that's something different, I think. Let's go back to the README real quick, make sure I understand what I need. Okay, that's all we need. Okay, let's just do that. Stop hemming and hawing about this and let me just download it. Sometimes it's just quicker to try it than to sit there and ponder if something's going to work or not. So I'm just going to stick that sucker straight in there. So this should now find it. Come on. Oh yes, stop doing, please. What is it not like here? Oh, I see the problem. It is a C implementation. And I think it does not like that. That I forget it. Yeah, I ran into this last time. I like this library a lot, but I ran into this where there were some things that it did not like because, yeah, did I fix that? I think I might have had a fixed implementation of this that fixed those problems. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can get that over here. Hang on a second. I think I might have hacked that one to solve the problem. And while that's okay in general, I don't know if I want to do that for this. And if that's the case, I need to find another implementation. Sorry, just going to test this guy. Use some beyond compare here to get to this. All right. So yeah, you can see I fixed these cases. Like when I ran into this, is like, well, that's really annoying. Can I fix these cases? And I did. I went in here and fixed these cases to make it work. That's not really viable, I don't think. I'm surprised that, what's the right way to do this? Because it should be able to be fine with this being that. Let's see what the right way. See if good old ChatGPT will tell me something useful about this issue. See, but that's exactly what I just did. It did not like this. Annoying. It already has this in here. Yeah, this is already in here, so I'm kind of surprised. Is it because, is it a C like error level or something? Or it could be the C version or something. Man, I don't want to spend too much time digging around with this. See what happens if I do that. Just change it to a different language standard, see if it gives me, I mean, it was already on like the legacy standard, so that should totally work. Huh. Well, that's really annoying. Don't like that. I'm doing that. Let's see if I can find another one while we're debating this. No, I could also just do this and implement this difference. I mean, I don't think anything's changed in this library in a long time. If it works, it works. OGG is not changing formats at this point. It is I don't think there's new development on OGG anymore. So I don't think there's any changes here that they're problematic. This is a tested library. It works. It's basically just the OGG Vorbis code, just with a little bit of a wrapper around it. I'm just going to do this. Look at that. It's going to work now. It compiles. All that was just dumb junk. Nothing really important. So it's kind of dumb, but whatever. I'll live with that. Let's then let's go crib off my other implementation and see how I was using it. Right. Okay. So first, I guess I think we can just detect the signature very simple here, but I'm going to start with, let's just put this code in here and we'll go from there. And we're not going to do memory reading. We're going to let it use the file system directly, I think, is probably the best thing to do. That's all defined in this header file here. I don't think we need this open callbacks, because we're not going to do that. Forget how we do files on this. All right. So I think the default implementation, how does that work? I might have to go look up some Vorbis docs real quick and verify. Because I think if I'm not using, oh yeah, you have to do OV open. I can do fopen if I just want to use the regular fopen system, which might be acceptable for most things that we need to do, I think. Oh, interesting. That's not good. Oh no, decoder has to be initialized. I see. Now I remember how that's supposed to work. Yes, yes, yes. Let me go look at my other implementation. Because I'll have some code that I can share from my Switch implementation. Which I can maybe share with a little bit of a caution here. Let's see, I'm going to put it temporarily into here. take a peek at it, make sure I didn't break. I'm not doing anything wrong here. Okay, so I need to implement a decoder. Which how I did this was this, because this is the thing that actually does the work, is the decoder itself. So that's the actual decoder object. And what this is supposed to do is verify the signature and return, is it an OG or not? Which I think I can do it very simply here. So I'm just going to do, and if it is valid, then it's supposed to return, it's supposed to allocate the decoder object and return it. That's how this the design of this implementation was supposed to work that way. Need to verify that. Yeah. Yep, that's all it needs to do. So it needs to just do this if it's valid. Return the valid decoder. If it is OG, this is going to go into the decoder eventually. Sticking this somewhere for right now. Let's get our implementation functions in here while we're at it. Easier just to do that. Copy these guys across. And for now, just stick everything in this one file because, why not? This guy's going to go into here at some point. This just needs to check if the signature makes sense, which how I did that before was just comparing it to the other, to the other one. We can do that different ways. Hey, look, the regular spammer. All right, so you need to check the signature here. And I think how I did that before was pretty simple, but I think if we just use, I think it's just OG. I think it's like, I think it's something like that. If I remember correctly, but I'll double check. That should be good enough for our purposes. Let's disable that for now. This at some point. This might be good enough to run real quick and double check that this stuff is working. Check my signature, see if that works. I'm realizing, now that, even if I get this all decoding, that the next problem I'm going to have is that we never finish the implementation of dynamic sound effect streaming properly. So that'll be the next hurdle here once we get done with this. But we'll see how far we get here, and then we'll see if we can look at the next. All right, back to our Test Explorer. We're going to debug this guy. So what's our signature? OG S. I forgot about that. So it should be that. That's probably good enough. I think there's something more in that signature. Like I think there might be a version in there or something. Yeah, it looks like we can just do that. We'll just do this 4. That's really what it is. So we've detected it. The reason these are functions and not just like an ID lookup is I figure some formats might require more complicated. Oh, that's wrong. That is wrong. Some formats might require a more complicated verification of some sort, so we just have a helper function that does it for. Oh, why does that not work? Why are you not working? Just failing to build or something? No, it built. Oh, I think this is the thing I ran into last time. Like if I don't change something in this code and the decoder, the test code, it doesn't actually execute it. Yeah, I think that'll do it. It doesn't copy things across if I don't make a change to the C# code. Right, so that should be, yep. So it detected it, and it's going to return this decoder, and then say, hey, I have a decoder, so nothing more to do there. It's going to call initialize, and that's where my next chunk of code needs to go. Because eventually going to get here. So it creates a sound system, which initializes the F audio, and this is not happy. So it's immediately setting the volume on it. And this set volume should probably be doing the right thing. I mean, this implementation isn't set up to hold on to it. It's assuming that the voice is. Wait, is that what's happening here? It's assuming that the voice is valid in this case. Oh, I see. It's because the implementation here. Okay, I see why. I think the code that we wrote for sound effect depended or assumed that the voice would not be null if it actually started playback. So I think that's what it was doing. And here it's assuming it isn't. It's just ready. Basically it's assuming that if the native voice exists, that I can start calling things on it. And the other one didn't do that. So it's kind of like a difference between. It's a difference between how the native API, the expectations in the APIs, right? Like the native code is expecting that if you have to have a low-level voice effect before you, or for low-level voice, like the actual, like in this case, F audio voice has to be allocated before you can set a volume on it. And the high-level code assumes that once I create a voice, the high-level voice object, that I can just call set volume on and it works. And that's a discrepancy in the APIs, or what the expectations are between the APIs. Because if I look here at like sound effect, I guess, sound effect instance. Okay, every once in a while it wants to do this to me. There we go. I believe what happens is it doesn't create the voice. The voice exists, but what's the difference here? I didn't implement it this way, and I hate changing the low-level code to do this, but maybe I do. Maybe it needs to support holding on to the volume if someone is not, if the voice doesn't exist yet. I mean, it wouldn't be bad for people that might be using our native API directly to have it work this way. Yeah, it might not be a bad thing to do. It's extra work. I'm just trying to think what the quickest way to get this to function properly is. Is it around? You know what? It did call. So the issue here is that this low voice is not ready. This voice. And that voice is created during at play, I believe. Yeah, when you call play, that's where it creates this low voice. Where is it? No, is that? That's not true. It's not at play. When is it? Looks like. Okay, that's when you set a buffer, it does it. I thought I also did it somewhere else. Voice create with sample rate. Okay, yeah. Oh, I see what the problem is. It never, this is the problem. Duh. This is supposed to have a sample rate in channels, and if it does, it says, hey, create the voice ahead of time. That's not doing that part. Ugh. Back front BB4, face blue spam shape. I assume that is telling me spam or something. I don't know. Weird thing. Sometimes stuff that people put in chat is kind of weird. But this is the core issue, so I just need to fix that. Duh. So there's actually a problem here. I just need to fix the decoder to do what it's supposed to do, which is at this point I should be able to gather the info for the sound effect or for the decoder, and I didn't do that. So let's go do that real quick. So stopping. So it needs to create this Vorbis file because that's what's going to track the. That's what holds on to a lot of state for the Vorbis reader. And I think cleanup on this is just delete, if I remember correctly. I'm going to double check with this with my other implementation that I can't share. Just looking at what the cleanup is for this. I might as well copy the cleanup across. Okay, yeah. So the cleanup is OV clear. That cleans up a bunch of internal stuff, and then I can delete the reader. And that's our cleanup, essentially. There's nothing else that we need to do. So we're going to do fopen here with the path. We're going to worry about file path issues later. And then once the reader and I can call this to get the. You go look at the error code there. That returns our Vorbis info, and I think then we can fill out our info from that Vorbis info. Channels. Yeah, channels rate. I think it's just 3 things. Sample rate duration is the other one, which that's the trickier one to figure out. Depending on the, oh, that's what it isn't like. Slap a V on the front of it, problem solved. Can probably calculate this. I'm just going to say, do that for right now. That's a fine detail that I can worry about later. But this will make sure that it calculates everything else right, setting the position in time so that, you know, if you have to rewind or fast forward your sound effect or your music, that it can go to the right place. Then decodes the main actual work is decode. Oh, I have the code for seeking. Might as well do that while I'm here. I don't need that. I just need, because I have that part of it. And position here, I believe it's time in milliseconds, so I'm going to assume that that is correct. I'm just going to hope for the best here. I should probably set this thing to initialize nulled. Constructor would be nice, but you know, don't have to have one. Just in case. Decode's the other big thing. Yeah, so I need to implement the code next, but we'll deal with this next. Let's get here and verify this works first, huh? Remember that other issue. I need to here's my test code. Change something here first so that it knows that I'm actually trying to change that code and it compiles and includes the runtime properly. It's really dumb, but whatever. So this should actually decode, open up the thing now. So it should, we know it gets there. We should just want to see it get here. So it creates the V reader, passes this path in, and it opens. I think 0 means a success. I need to properly handle this, and I have some code that I'm working on on another copy of repo at home that adds some new logging APIs to the low-level native so that we can start logging errors at the low level in a way that hopefully are visible enough to people using the C# library so that if they run into a problem with the native, we can report back what the problems are. That's kind of an issue we need to resolve here. So there's our info, our bitrate, and our number of channels, so it has what we need here. So this will be correct now. This is still a to-do for me. It returns a decoder. And this thing should, like if we go to the F audio code now, when it gets here, it should say, oh, I have a sample rate and channel, so let's create the PCM data. So we created that. So setting the sound, so here it's setting the position to 0, which should do nothing, essentially. I'm pretty sure position there is milliseconds, but I don't know for sure. Sample offset, I need to fix that so that it's a sample-based thing, maybe. Yeah, that might be something I have to dicker around with a little bit and get that to be correct. That's something for later. So here's decode. Here's where it's actually getting to the nitty-gritty. It's saying, hey, decode some data. Gets past a buffer that I can copy data into and a size. Nope, it's not correct yet. Yeah. Oh no, that's an output size and an output buffer. So it's passing data back to native, from native code to C# so we can fill it in. So let's start working on that. So the key to that is this. Okay, we'll do this. If false, just in case for a reason it has a null V reader here, we can do that. So V read float is the word that actually does it. It wants an array of data for PCM samples and a length and this bitstream for. I don't remember what bitstream is for. think it's reported back or something. But I mean, I guess it's up to us to decide how much data we want to pass back. So kind of telling it like how much, is that an output? I forget if this is looking for, yeah, I think this is where I just need to dive into the docs. So pointer to an output buffer, the pointer will be set to the decoded output buffer. Okay. It'll pass you a decoded output buffer. So we need to pass one in so that it can actually do that. Call it PCM data. Samples, maximum number of code samples to produce. So we need to decide what our max samples are. It's probably based off of our channels. Probably want to keep this info or copy this info probably. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to tell it. I'm going to calculate at the beginning how many samples I'm going to decode in a chunk. Then this will be a no-brainer. It will just tell it like, here's how many samples we want. And I don't know what bitstream is for. Let's go look and see what it means. So I think how this works is it ends up creating a weird array of floats. Because in theory, it can return stuff from multiple channels. I think that's how it ends up doing it. So up to 1024 float samples. So we have to decide how many samples we want. Usually what you do with that is code samples equals rate. So rate's how many samples you actually have per second. So let's say that times number of channels. I think that's normally what we want to do, is however many samples we have in a second times number of channels, so we have enough samples. We decode a big enough chunk for a second of audio. I mean, that might be too much, really. Let's do a quarter second of audio. How's that? It seems like a simple number. That might be bigger than we really need. Smaller might be better, maybe. Just depends. So this will tell us how much it actually decoded. So what we need to do is return. But our next thing is we need to, I think it's what's returning, right? It's returning our, I just assume this. Yeah, so we have to do this conversion from float format into native integer format. I mean, we probably don't. I wonder if this one is, if OB read versus the other is cheaper. Yeah, I mean, might be. I don't know why. I think I'm reading float out of this other. I got the float call from this other implementation. I think it's because this implementation wanted float samples, and technically we don't need them for what we need in MonoGame. We always, for our audio, we always use 16-bit per channel samples, which is pretty standard. So we might actually want to do this. It's the same thing. I think in this case, we have to provide the buffer, which is fine. We do have a buffer to provide. Well, no. This is expecting to return a buffer, which is fine. We can return a buffer because that buffer is just used to pass the data back to native. Native then takes that buffer and copies it into something else. So it's just a temporary buffer for this to work from, not a long-term buffer that it would hold on to. The benefit of this is internally it would decode it to the right format. So there's a benefit to that. Does that return how many? So n is the number of bytes read. I think this returning here is supposed to be bytes. So we're going to make sure that it returns something useful in these cases. Yeah, let's just do it one time at the beginning. We'll pre-initialize them to something so that if it fails in any case, it at least doesn't break anything. Then I don't know what current selection is. That's that bitstream thing, I think. I think it wants. That's just the buffer length. So let's do this. Yeah. Ugh, the old null. Should probably keep track of that, huh? That'd be helpful. What does it want here? It wants a care buffer, whatever. Harshrana, what are we building? We are building a implementation that decodes OGG data for a sound player. So we're making some progress here. Yeah, I think this will actually do it as long as I allocate, Went loopy there for a second. Let's slap this in here. I hate quotes when I don't need it. All right, so it went over your head. Sorry about that. This should do it, however. I think so. We'll see. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Go away. No, don't do that. Let's get back to our C# code because we have to poke it. It'd be better if this just worked every time, but whatever. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Just want to get this thing to coding. All right, so debug. So let's look at our initialization here, rate, channels. So it ends up being that many samples. So that's the buffer length. Wait, no, this is wrong. That is the length, but this has to be, no, wait, why am I doing that? It should be 16-bit samples. That's fine, I can do it this way. Let's do this, hang on. It'll be better if I do. And I guess they are signed. Harshrana, you look experienced with coding. Give me some advice. Write code, write lots of code, debug lots of code. You know, that's the only way to learn, at least for me. The only way for me to learn was to do it. So that's always my recommendation. Just go in there and do it. And that buffer length is actually incorrect because it's actually ×2. Yeah, I can't do it this way. I mean, I hate prefixing stuff like this all the time. Just make it, that cleans it up. I like keeping 16 because I can actually see the samples a little bit better if I ever need to peek at the samples instead of, you know, having to fix that. So this works out okay. All right, this is better. Let's make our change here again. Which is dumb, but that's what I have to do to get it to compile and copy things across. And now I'm going to debug this again. Okay, so ends up being divided by 4 times 2 ends up being the exact same thing the rate was originally, which is kind of dumb, but whatever. Allocate our buffer. There's our buffer with our data in it, or the garbage in it at the moment. So it's going to create this guy, and it's come back in here. It's going to seek, then it's going to say, hey, I want to read this thing. I never set finished. I need to fix that. I don't use that anymore. So it decoded 512. We determined that was samples. Let's take a quick peek. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than 512. Let's look at our data. That looks reasonable, but then do I get garbage after 512? No, I have, I think that's the number of bytes it actually read. Actual number of bytes read, yeah. Okay, the return will generally be less than length. Okay. We'll read one Vorbis packet per invocation, so read 512 bytes. Which there's no guarantee that that's going to be correct. I guess I should probably set it up to do this in a loop, potentially. I'm pretty sure my caller here, let's go look and see what the caller is expecting. Size is size in bytes, so it's expecting a size in bytes back, so that's fine, that makes sense. So it decoded that size and saying, hey, read that out of the buffer. Oh, fat fingered something there. So then C# gets, hey, I finished. Oh, it returns finished true, that's bad. So let's go fix that while we're at it here. What did it do here? Oh, it's... Wait, what? Oh, it's supposed to return true if it's finished. Okay. How do I detect if I'm finished? Zero indicates in the file. Okay, so if it's less than 0, false, it failed. If to return true, I am finished. Wait a second. Otherwise, to return false, there's more data. I mean, okay, let's run true on finished. If I remember, if it that looks like what it's supposed to be doing. Yeah, decode. If it returns 0, then which is false, returns false, then or true. So it's just trying to return is it finished or not. So it is finished in this case. I would say if it got an error, it's finished. Decode equals 0, it's finished. You know, it actually finished. I'm going to do that. I might as well say, not call it again. Don't need to do that. That's good enough. All right, so that's more correct. There's something else I ran into? No, it was just that. Right, building this. All right, let's run another test here. Oh man. I need to get rid of this junk here. Just going to call append buffer, which will find a free buffer and append a chunk of data to it, or create a new buffer. I heard a bump, did something. Crashed out after that, but it did something. that's the detect memory leak stuff. Okay. Let's do a couple things. One, I know the song's not that long, so let's let it at least play for like 3 seconds so that we can actually hear something before it actually stops. That'll be helpful. And then it's probably okay that it's just getting these small chunks, but maybe. No, actually, it's not going to work that way because this is where it gets into the next problem. So it is decoding some data. We know that. The next problem is that it doesn't know. The next problem is that this doesn't work right. Like, I mean, I guess this would work in this case because get buffer count, it doesn't use the on buffer end callback. Because this should work, I think. Yeah, this should work, I think. Let's just see what happens if I run it again. Heard something for a second. Yep, heard something. Doesn't sound exactly right, but it did something. Let's make sure our format is correct, because it had a very specific note here about how this works. Should be Little India, I'm pretty sure. We want 16-bit samples. Scientifically, it's a good question. I wonder what we're expecting here. Just for shits and giggles. No, it might not have actually. Made a different sound. Sounded worse though, so probably not right. I'm kind of surprised that that stopped so quickly. What's happening here? Any free buffers? This test looks wrong, huh? Length is less than or equal to size. I mean, it needs to be greater than or equal to size, not less than. I mean, it's weird that it's a different size. It could be this, it's grabbing different sized chunks. You know, like could be the first buffer decoded at 512, the next one decoded at 4096, and that's why it got like that. Probably don't want it to decode odd sized chunks on a regular basis, because that'll be sort of a problem. that'll be better. It'll probably get further there. It's the reason it wasn't working because it was decoding a couple little chunks and then failing pretty quickly. Let's do this and see what we get here. We should hear something more this time. It's running slow. It looks like it played 3 seconds and stopped, so I think it's doing the right thing. Just did something weird. Let's do it again. Sounds like the rate is wrong. A lot of gaps and stuff. So let's see what's happening with our decoding here, huh? You don't need you. So close. Oh, what happened to my breakpoint? And up. All right, so my breakpoint down here didn't get hit, so it didn't build this properly or something. Let's debug again. Okay, so it decoded 512. Oh, this sleep is like... Yeah, I was looking at the stopwatch to decide how long it's lasted. I'm going to just turn that off for right now. Let's... Some debugging, it's like it's not doing the right thing here. I'm just going to have it, for my testing purposes, wait forever. I'm going to do that for now. I want to go bigger than an integer if I can avoid it here. Yeah, whatever. That should be enough for what I need. Just want it to keep going. Okay, so decoded 512. Then decoded 512 again. 512 again. 512 again. And I'm not seeing a case where it decoded. Just curious where that 4096 came from. It's definitely decoding. It's got gaps, which is weird. Let's see if I go back up here to the decoder thread. One buffer. One buffer. I mean, it's probably, it doesn't help that it's decoding such a small chunk. It does get to having enough buffers at some point. This must be something in what it's probably got to be something to do with the audio settings. Let's do a couple things. First, let's stop this. Let's go look at the actual audio that it is trying to decode here. Artifacts, tests, stop BK, debug, assets, audio, song. Can I get properties off this guy? Yeah, 44 kilohertz, 2-channel stereo. I mean, it's what it's supposed to be. So that's correct. It plays correct here. Seems to make sense. Make sure that our streaming API is not to blame here. We go to our audio implementation. See if that's actually being called. It should be. That's a good test. Square Bananas said, you know, if you give it the full buffer without queue callbacks, does it play that correctly? Yeah, that's a good question. That would tell us a lot, right? If I pass it a bigger buffer, even, that will tell me a lot, because then I'm not worried about multiple buffers, which I could do fairly easily, I think. It's something I probably already need to do, because OGG is only going to return things in a specific increment of size, and if we want to have a bigger buffer than that, it's going to need to make multiple calls. Okay, so it's definitely getting that call back. So let's test that real quick. We're going to fix this so that, come on. Let's fix this in a loop. Load this guy over here. I can just do it like this to get rid of that inside here. And we're going to intermittent high decoded. Probably put this in the loop here. As long as it's within that limit, then go ahead and read into the chunk, right? Size in bytes minus read bytes. That's how many bytes I want it to potentially read next. I'll read it into that. So it's going to keep decoding here until either it finishes or it got an error, it's going to break out. If it got to 0, it couldn't read anymore. Otherwise, it's going to keep pushing it into this buffer. And then when it gets to the end here, current size is bytes, and the buffer is the full buffer. So it can read bigger chunks now. So that should be testable here. This might be where I call it a night or a day. Let's see. Build this, debug that. If this works, then we'll see what it sounds like, because it's bigger chunks. It's going to be grabbing like a second of audio, I think, or a quarter second of audio. So let's see if my code here works. Does it sound better? If it does, then it's for some reason not joining the buffers correctly. Oh, it did not like that at all. Oh, wait. Return 0. That's stupid. How the heck did I do that? That was dumb. All right, come on. Getting close. Okay, red 512, red 512. Read another 512. 12. So it's decoding away until it got here. So it finally read the max size that I wanted it to read. It's returned a buffer with all that data in it. It should start playing that. Sounds a lot better. Yeah. And then it decoded 0. Finished, but it might have some temp bytes in there. It worked. There you go. For whatever reason, the very small chunk, I mean, the 512 bytes in something that's running 44 hertz in a, was it 4410? Yeah. 44 1000 divided by 512, you know, oh, sorry. 512 divided by 441,000. Oh, yeah, it's like 1% of a second, you know, so 0.01 seconds, you know, that's a pretty small chunk. It was never going to decode properly there, but it looks like it's working now. It's decoding 1/4 of a second, which is enough data. And it looks like it's working properly. I wanted to eventually do this, but you know, hey, it works. So it's doing what it's supposed to do now. Let's run that test again, just because it's fun now that it actually works. Where did my unit test tab go? Oh, it's because it's still running. Let's see, I'm gonna run it again. Sounds great. We have a sound player. It's not fully working, but it's working pretty fully. Let's stop this. Oh no, stop. All right. Let's push a little longer here. I'm gonna have it decode 4 seconds of audio. That seems long enough. And then do this test. So that's a working unit test. So yeah, that's not too bad. It works. Let's actually put up a PR for this before we call it a day here, so that at least we can push this work up. I hate all this copy stuff. I'll probably do a cleanup later or on another thing, but at least we have the start of a working system here. Yeah, this isn't too bad. Let's do that real quick because we can. So we're going to commit some of this stuff. Let's see what we got here. I believe these assets are actually checked in, if I remember correctly. I double check to make sure that I'm not wrong. I think those XMB access we always check in because they're kind of like, they're used for testing purposes. So I'll do that. I'm just going in here to the tests here. Yeah, they're committed. I mean, they're all very small, so it doesn't hurt anything. So I'm going to commit these things there. This is the storage stuff we're still working on. Song tests, which has this extra stuff, which has a bunch of junk that I probably don't want to keep in there. Here's our Orbis implementation, which is working. So, or OG implementation, which is working. So I can't complain about that. Mini Orbis, modified Mini Orbis, which nobody's going to deal with that. This test, which now should work properly. The length should always be greater than or equal to the size of the buffer. If not, it's going to be a problem. It needs that memory. And that's it. This is the other stuff from the other stuff we're working on. That's the entirety of it. Pretty simple, right? Just had a lot of garbage to deal with to get here. I had to make sure I had a unit test because I didn't have one. And I had to figure out why the mini Vorbis stuff didn't work. And you can see how, like, it's kind of neat seeing how simple this is. Very easy to read and straightforward. You know, this does have one thing that's broken here, I think. No, this is correct. Finish true, yeah. No, that's one thing that's broken there. Let's go fix that real quick. Just because I'm looking at it. Should return just finished, right? Because finish is false unless we set it to true. So if we've set finish to true, then it's finished. Whatever after this, it's done. So that makes sense. Even though it shouldn't matter, let's set that to false. This is a problem that needs to be fixed. Have to go figure out the math to make that work. This probably is still too much audio data in a chunk, you know, but it's probably okay. Yeah. Let's build it one more time. I'm going to clean up this unit test stuff on the next stream. I hate the fact that that's duplicated. Unit test works. I'm going to shorten that unit test at some point because it's too long, really. All right. So I can decode an OGG song now. The next step would be to implement the other path, which is implementing the decoder for MP3. So it's doing the same thing, finding a single header MP3 decoder. Don't need that. So yeah, the next step would be implementing this path, a decoder for MP3. If we have MP3 and OGG, that's like most of what anybody's going to have with their sound stuff. We could add some more formats, and that's the plan. And then the plan is that once we have this, you know, we could add in a couple more formats that might be useful if somebody wants to add another format in here, as long as it's very straightforward and simple to implement. This gives us cross-platform music across every platform without having to worry about platform-specific stuff, and it should sound perfectly great. You know, getting something that's higher quality than OGG and MP3 maybe if we want to do that, but it's not super critical, I don't think. And then the next step is obviously going to implement this other path, which is the video decoder, which is the same thing. We have this video decoder system, works the same way. You know, we're going to implement Theora, but we really want a H.264 implementation of some sort, and I think we have a library for that we want to use already. So it's just about doing it's the same pattern, the same design. You know, you return what the width, height, and the FPS and the duration of the video is. You know, and you have a decoder, and then it calls. You know, the video decoder provides an audio decoder, so that any video that has audio gets a decoder that works with it. You know, also the video decoder. You know, has the same thing. You can get the current position. You can set it if the video is looped or not. You can decode a frame, basically, is what it does. It returns it, whatever texture format. You know, you're supposed to return the native texture format from this. So it has to have a little bit of glue code that allocates a texture from the video system. The graphics system needs to be passed in. I think actually it does get passed in, doesn't it? Yeah, graphics device gets passed in. So you can say, hey, give me a texture, and then I'm going to write data that texture in the decoder. Make that work. Now that's CPU work, but you know, it at least makes it flexible, you know, for our purposes. If we really want to get 4K video, though, we might need to have something that works using the GPU, which is trickier. So yeah, so that's good. Let's go get this PR pushed up, huh? Did I actually? Okay, let's commit that. I'm gonna push that sucker. Oh, it always tells me this, and it's like, just do it, dummy. All right. GitHub. Nope, it's in my fork. All right, so progress. All right, this looks great. And one of the things with the unit test that we noticed was that it doesn't detect if the song is, like, if we call, is the song still playing? I don't know if it will know that it's still playing or not. I guess, yeah, maybe it does, because I think the, yeah, because the song native, it'll go through here, and if it gets a finished state back from the decoder, it says done playing and calls an event. So it should detect that it finished, that it actually stopped because it naturally finished playing. And pause just tells the sound to pause, so that should totally work as well. I could fix the test to like play a little bit, pause for a second, then play again and continue, and to verify that that works. And that would tell me that things are functioning properly. But this API is super simple. And yeah, this part of it's the thing that is broken. I do need to implement a on buffer end kind of call back into the voice API. That's the problem that's keeping the streaming API from working right. Is we really do need to know, we have to have an event for native code saying, hey, this buffer is done playing, so that we can tell, hey, get another buffer. So instead of sitting here looping, burning CPU, waiting for it to get done, we just say, send an event back when it's the buffer that whenever any buffer finishes playing, that'll tell us to decode a new buffer. But that's for a future stream. So cool. That's kind of shitty. Shouldn't be writing that in every time it does that. It could actually be naming I'll have to do that for next time. Probably should make sure that it names the thread whenever it does this. It probably should also set the priority of the thread to high and things like that, or some reasonable case. All right, so not too shabby. We got this done. The unit test might actually fail on some of the platforms because I don't know if it will do the right thing for all of them. It might. Yeah, if that unit test runs on macOS and Ubuntu, it should work, I think, along with Windows, because it's built using an OG, so it should work. All right, well, that was a stream. Let's get this back under control here. All right, guys, so that wasn't too bad. We got through it. I was worried there for a second it would be another one where I didn't get to the end of something after 2 hours, but it looks like we did. So next time I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this and get the MP3 side in place and do a little cleanup in this API, and then get this feature to a finished state so we can actually get 385 out with song playback working. That'll be pretty important. Then I'll get back to the save API, which we still want to try to get that into 385, but we keep pushing 385 out, so we want to actually get it done, and the only way to get it done is to ship it. So we'll see if I can find some more time to maybe do another impromptu stream next week. But now that we're getting back from the holiday, everything's getting complicated again. All right, well, thanks for watching. Make sure you follow us on Twitch and on YouTube. That's where we post most of our stuff. YouTube in particular, but Twitch as well. We're trying to build up that audience a little bit. Kahaladin007, thanks for the stream. You're welcome. We're doing this at least every Friday. I try to do it. I'm trying to do some more. And you'll also see streams from Simon, who does more of our tutorials and more education side of things and learning about MonoGame. And we should be starting a new show here soon. Dom is going to run it. It's going to be kind of like a weekly what's going on in the game dev world with the focus on more MonoGame kind of stuff, or XNA C# stuff. So that will be starting soon. And then once a month, we kind of have an open hours with the entire MonoGame Foundation, kind kind of update what's going on with MonoGame. There's some big news at this next one. You probably seen some news about it. You'll hear more about it in that. And we're talking about doing me doing just another show, at some point. One other question here. Let's see. Lost my chat. Where did my chat go? There's my chat. Yeah, another question. When does DX still use WFF for me? That might fail on OGG. Yeah, no, that absolutely will fail on OGG. But this implementation is for our new native backend and not for those other backends. So for whenever you build your content for Windows DX, it's going to build whatever song content it wants for Windows DX, and it has to recode it to something else. It'll convert to whatever it is. In this case, I said desktop GL, but in theory, I could have said that, hey, I want to build this content with Vulkan. It would have built an OGG. But I think you can also tell it to not convert the audio file. So we can have a test MP3 in there and say, hey, convert this song, but don't convert the audio file. Leave it as is. And it will copy the same MP3 across. And then as long as your platform can decode MP3, it works. So that's the idea. It's really for the new native stuff. It's really not for the old stuff. The old stuff at some point will start retiring, as the native stuff becomes more solidified, which I'm hoping will be the case by the end of the year. So progress. All right. Thanks, guys. And also, donate. MonoGame is an open source project. It is just done by volunteers that do it in their spare time. Myself and some others. And, donations kind of help us push things forward and keep this open source alternative to the Unities with your monthly subscriptions, and Unreal with your licensing, and Giant tool that, is more about dragging and dropping scripts than writing code. We feel like this is a better approach for most people, especially for indie titles. But yeah, your donations directly help the foundation move things forward, keep everything running, as well as just paying ourselves to be able to spend time on MonoGame full time and write code like this. All right. So thanks, everybody. I will see you again at the very least next week. Later. Bye.